In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a hint system to your game because your game needs to have a hint system. One of the experiences of playing a text adventure game is getting stuck because a puzzle is too hard, or you don't really understand how to solve it, or it's not properly hinted at by the game itself. And if you got stuck playing one of these things, there was very little you could do unless you had a friend who already knew how to get past that roadblock. One company, Infocom, would sell hint books, and that way, even if you had a pirated copy of the game, you still had to buy the hint book, and they were making some money off you. So, but we don't need to do that. We're going to put the hint system right in the game, and I'll show you what my hint system looks like here, and then you can use that as a guide to make yours. This is a small adventure game that I wrote for a conference called Kansas Fest, which is dedicated to the Apple II, and I wanted to make sure people could play the entire game and not get stuck, so I put in a hint system. And if you type in wait, you will notice that it says, note, if you get stuck, unlikely, you can ask for a hint by typing help or hint. So the game is telling us on turn 0 that help or hints are available. So what happens if I type in hint? It says, okay, did you give the Mac SE to Sark? So a Mac SE is a computer, a Macintosh SE. And there's a guy in the game named Sark, and everybody playing this game would know who that person is. So it's saying, okay, did you do that? And we type yes, yes or no. So I'll say, yeah, or I'll say no. And it says, okay, go do that, right? Or it could say, the game could have said, all right, pick up the Mac SE, go to room 126 and give it to Sark. It could have been more explicit. Let's try another hint. Did you give the Mac SE to Sark? Let me say yes. Let's say we did that. Okay, now it's giving us the next hint. And if they say, well, what if we don't have it yet? You can see it'll say, okay, drink the slurm. That'll give you the energy to get upstairs, right? So the screwdriver's upstairs, but you're too tired to go upstairs, all the stairs, so you need to drink the slurm. Slurm is like Mountain Dew from the cartoon Futurama. So you can see that the game is, progressively feeding us hints. And finally, did you give the Mac SE? Yes, yes. Did we give it to Sark? Okay, yes. You can see in the remaining hints that the player would need to solve the game. So let's pop over to Lantern and see how that is implemented. Let's go to events first here, and you can see that I have an event called prompt hint. And what it does is it says if moves is equal to 0, notice that I've doubled the double equal sign because that's comparison. Is moves equal to 0? Then print line. Note if you get stuck, unlikely, you can ask for a hint by typing help or hint. So every time the game, every time you enter a command, it checks to see is moves equal to 0, and if it is, it prints out that prompt or that little message. Now, you might be wondering, where does moves come from? Moves is built into the game. The game keeps tracks of what, that's like your turn number. How many moves have you made? What turn number is this? And then it gets updated every time you enter a command. So it's only going to do that on the first turn of the game because the move counter starts at 0. Okay, and then let's look at our let's go over to functions, and let's scroll down to, there's a function here called cheat. I cut out a hint, would have been a better one, hint or help, but whatever, I call it cheat. And let's take a look at this function. So it says, print line, did you give the Mac SE to Sark, right? It asks us a question, and then it uses this ask function, ASK, with the open and close parentheses and a semicolon, right? And all that does is it just sits there waiting for the user to type in a response, and then we check, was the response Y or was the response yes? So if they've already done that, then we have to worry about, giving them the next hint. If they haven't done it, we just print, okay, go do that, right? So if this is true, we're going to fall into the if block. Otherwise, we're going to do this. So if we entered no or something other than yes, we're going to say, okay, go do that. Like go give the Mac SE to Sark. But if we typed yes, then we're going to enter the if statement. So if they entered Y or yes, then it'll print out, did you get the Torx screwdriver? And then it's going to ask the player to type in a response. and if they answered Y or yes, then then we'll ask them the next question. Otherwise, we'll just say, okay, go do that, like go get the screwdriver, right? So you can see we have if statements inside of if statements here. There's three nested if statements, or there's three if statements here, inside of each other. And you may be wondering, where does this answer thing come from? Well, that's a built-in variable as well. Answer is actually a number. All this, the strings in Lantern are all entries in a table. So don't really worry about that. But what it does is when the user types something in, it sees if it can find that in the string table, and then it checks for a match. So. It doesn't really matter how it works under the hood. You can just do something like this. You really just want to. You can even just kind of copy and paste this and modify it. Don't spoil the whole thing at once. Don't give the player too much information. Make sure that because what the worst, you don't want to. The whole purpose of this is to feed the player information incrementally. You don't want to spoil the whole game by giving them the entire walkthrough. So there we go. We're just using ask and answer. That's the key thing here. Just ask the user for first for input, and then you're checking whatever they typed in. So that's all you need to do. And then you have to go to your verbs here. I've added hint and help and cheat. I've added those as verbs, and I've made functions here. No, I'm sorry, sentences. Let's go to sentences. You can see I have, if the player types help, call the cheat function. If the player types hint, call the cheat function. So cheat was the name of my function where I give the player some hints. So I really should have, cheat was probably a bad term for that. I probably should have called it hint or help or something like that. You just need to add the verbs here for help and hint, and then for your you need to add a sentence that says, if the verb is help, call the your help function. If the verb is hint, call your hint function. So that the sentence is how you're going to wire up your function to the verb that the player can type in. All right, and that's it. Oh, but one other thing, I'm going to show you something that's really ugly in Lantern, and I hate it, and I don't know how to fix it. Let's pop up the test client here, and I type wait. You can see, all right, so if you get stuck unlikely, you can ask for a hint by typing hint or cheat, or help or hint, okay, whatever. And now if I type hint, it's going to pop up this little window. Did you give the Mac SE to Sark, right? And I have to type no. Okay, go do that, right? So unfortunately, that's the only way I could actually get the thing to ask you explicitly for user input, is to have that little pop-up window. I know it's really ugly and horrible, and unfortunately there's no other way I could think around it. So it is particularly ugly in the little test client here. However, games are not meant to be played in this test client. They're meant to be played, on the command line or in an emulator. So that little bit of ugliness we're just going to have to live with. So there you go. That's how you add a hint system. Your game should have one. Again, don't spoil everything. Feed the player little bits of information. And then also do this last. This would be something you add after the structure of your story is put together and you're done kind of putting the obstacle course together that the player's got to run through. Once you've got that in place, then go add the hint system. If you add the hint system first, your game might change, and then it's going to be out of sync. So don't do that. And of course, if you get stuck or you need help on this, by all means, ask for help. I'll be happy to get you up and running. So hopefully this is enlightening. And but if it wasn't not sufficiently enlightening, just ask me for help.